right, now that you have learned what slope is, we're going to start finding slope. And there are three ways we're going to learn to find slope. We're going to find slope from a graph. That's what today is about. Then we will find slope from a table. And then we will find slope using a formula. So let's start finding slope given a graph. If you were given a graph and you were asked to find the slope, there are three steps. Step number one is find two, what I like to call pretty points. And if they are not connected, connect them. If they are connected, mark them so that you can find them on your graph. But find two pretty points, and if they're not connected, connect them. Now, if you look at this graph, there are 5 points. Only 2 of them are pretty points. What I mean by pretty points is this point right here is not pretty because this point is in the middle. It's going to be a fraction because it's not right on a number. What I mean by a pretty point is like this one right here, that its coordinates are going to be whole numbers. So the coordinates for this one are -3 and +1. And so its coordinates are whole numbers. So we're going to find 2 pretty points and we're going to connect it. We're going to connect them with a line. This point, and this point are not pretty at all. They do not have whole number coordinates. These are the 2 pretty points on this graph. So we're going to connect those 2 points with a line because they aren't already connected. Step number 2 is to create a right angle connecting the 2 points. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to draw a right angle connecting the 2 points. And so I'm going to come down like this and across like this. And you will see I have created a right angle right here. It's going to be, that is very important because what that helps us do is step number 3. It helps us find what is called the rise and the run. To find slope from a graph, it is always the rise over the run. Now I think every teacher does this a different way, so I'm going to tell you the way that I have always told my kids so that it keeps it from being confusing. You might have a teacher later that says it another way, but I promise this always works. Your rise can be positive or negative. You can either rise up or rise down. If you rise up, it's positive. If you rise down, it's negative. The thing I want you to remember when you're counting rise over run, at least for now, we're always going to run to the right. While we are first introduced to this and we are first learning how to find rise over run, we are going to rise up or down depending on the graph, and we will always run to the right. That's just how we will do it, okay? I always start with the point on the left and go to the point on the right because that is how we read a graph. So if I want to find my slope from here to here, the first thing I'm going to do is find my rise. Well, this time I rise down because my line moves in a downward direction. And what I have to do, the reason I drew this right triangle is because I'm going to count how many spaces did I go down. So to get from here to here, I went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So my rise is 5, but it's a -5 because I rose downward. So it rises in the negative direction. Now my run is how far across did I go. Like I told you, we will always run to the right. So I'm going to run to the right, and I'm going to count how many spaces I went to the right. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to the right. So my run is 5. That makes my slope, which is the rise over the run. Step number 4, we are going to write the rise over the run. Because that's what slope is. It is a ratio. It's not a, it's a number, but it is a ratio that compares the rise to the run of a graph. So we're going to write our rise over our run, and in this case my rise is -5 and my run is +5, and this will simplify. -5 over 5 is the same thing as -1. So the slope of this line is -1. That means that my rate of change is -1. The negative tells me the line is decreasing. The 1 tells me it is decreasing by 1 unit every time. So if you see, I go down 1. If I go from here to here, I went down 1 space. From here to here, I went down 1 space again. Here to here. So between each point, I'm just decreasing 1 space. That's what that slope is telling me. So let's practice a couple more. I have a line here. They have put points on this line for you. You want pretty points. Perfect pretty points. There happens to be one. Let me change colors because this pink shows up better. There is a perfect point right here, and there is also a perfect point right here. And so those are going to be the two pretty points that I'm going to use. And like I told you, we're going to draw a right angle. So I'm going to draw up and over, so I have made a right angle. And to find my rise, excuse the cat. She thought she was going to die if she didn't get to come in the room. To find my rise, I'm going to count how far I went up to get from here to here. So I'm going to count my spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my rise is 7, and it gets to be positive because I went up. My run is how far I went to the right. I went 1, 2, 3 to the right, so my run is 3. That makes my slope for this graph 7 over 3, because to get from one pretty point to the next pretty point, I go up 7 and to the right 3. So let's try another one. If you will notice, I'm going to go back just a minute. This line from left to right increases, and as we learned yesterday, that means that I'm going to have a positive slope because I have an increasing line. You see my slope is positive. This line decreases from left to right, which means when I write my slope, it needs to be a negative slope. If it's not negative, you've made a mistake. So you've got to make sure that you pay attention. Decreasing line, you're going to have a negative slope. So two perfect points, or pretty points. Here's one, and here's one. So we're going to draw our right triangle. And we're going to count our rise over our run. So here's my rise. I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. So my rise is -4 because I went down. And my run is 1, 2. So it goes over 2. So I have -4 over 2, but this will simplify. And we always want to simplify our slope because it makes our lives easier. You will come to see that a simplified slope is always the best. -4 over 2, well, that just becomes a division problem. -4 divided by 2 is just -2. And what that tells me is that from one point to the next, because here is another perfect point, from here to here, I went down 1, 2 spaces, and so my slope is -2, or -2 over 1 if you want to get real specific. But it's negative because that line is decreasing. Now here's another one, and I hope that you remember this from yesterday. This is a vertical line. This thing goes straight up and down, okay? If I want to find the slope of a vertical line, one thing I can do is remember the little thing I taught you yesterday. I showed you in the video yesterday is the VUX. Vertical lines have undefined slope, and the equation is always x equals. If you remember that, then you will know automatically the slope of this is going to be undefined, but I'm going to show you why. I'm going to pick two pretty points. Here's one, and here's one. I cannot, however, make a right angle that connects this point to this point because they are one right above the other. I can, however, count my rise over my run. My rise from one point to the next, and it does not matter whether you go up or go down. It makes absolutely no difference, I promise. But my rise from this point to this point is 1 because I went up 1 point to get there. My run, however, there isn't one because I do not go right or left at all. To get from here to here, I don't have to move right or left. That makes my run 0. If you take your calculator and you try to divide 1 by 0, your calculator is going to say, nope, sorry, cannot do it. It will give you an error and tell you that it is undefined. That is because division by 0 is undefined. It is not possible. You cannot take something and split it into 0 groups of something. I mean, you can't turn something into nothing. So that when you have division by 0, that is the reason it is undefined. The other thing that you can think about and try and remember is that if this were your walk and you were trying to climb this mountain or you wanted to ski down this mountain, the little guy that tries to ski down this mountain is going to fall off of this mountain. There is nowhere to go. If you try to ski from here to here, that's dangerous. Okay? You need some sort of a slope to go down. He's just falling straight down. And that's not safe. This is like the dude that was skydiving, and that's, without a parachute, that's no fun. This has an undefined slope. It is not possible to rise or to rise or fall like this. Okay, so it has an undefined slope. Now we have a horizontal line, and if you will remember from yesterday, horizontal lines have 0 slope, and I'm going to show you why it has 0 slope. Two pretty points. Here's one, and here's one. So we're going to do our rise over our run. Well, rise is always up and down. But to get from this point to this point, there is no up and down. I didn't go up or down, which makes my rise 0. But I do have a run. My run from here to here is 1. And so I end up with a slope that is 0 over 1. Now, unlike division by 0, I can divide 0. Okay, if I don't have anything and I want to share it with 3 people, they all get nothing. That's possible. I cannot, however, share one of something with 0 people. That leaves it with me, okay? But it is okay to divide 0 by something. This is okay. If you type this in your calculator, it's going to tell you has a slope of 0. And you can clearly see there is no slope here. It is flat, so it has a slope of 0. There isn't a slope, okay? Which is not the same that you don't say no slope, you just say 0. The answer is 0 for slope. So there's your vertical line, your horizontal line. So let's do one more example. We're going to find the slope of the line and then tell what the slope means. So I have this pretty little graph. Step 1, find 2 perfect points. Here's one, and here's another one. And we're going to find the rise over the run. But you need to be very careful when you do this graph. You need to pay attention to how the graph is labeled. Okay, across the bottom, the x-axis down here, it goes by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. But the y-axis here goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it counts by 2s. So every time you go up 1 space, you're really going up 2 units because this counts by 2. Keep that in mind. So we're going to draw our right angle so we can count our rise over our run. So my rise here is 2, 4, 6 because each one of these is 2 units. So my rise is 6 and my run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So my run is 4. This will simplify, however. 6 over 4 reduces to 3 over 2. Do not turn this into 1.5. Slope is a ratio, okay? That's what it is. 1.5 is not a ratio, it's a decimal. It is a ratio, so it needs to be written as a fraction. And it needs to be written as improper fraction is okay, mixed numbers or not. It has to be written as a ratio. And so we're going to talk about what this means. My rise is the same thing as my y, and my run is the same thing as my x, because my rise goes up and down like the y-axis, and my run goes left and right like the x-axis. And so you're going to look at how your graph is labeled. My rise, or my y-axis, is the salary, and my x, or my run, is the years of service. So my rise over my run means that this is my salary over my years of service. And if I want to say what this means is this is the salary per years of service. That's what it means. And I'm abbreviating service because I don't have a whole lot of room to write. So this is the salary somebody is making per their years of service. That's exactly what that means. And this is given in an hourly rate. All right? So that is the meaning of the slope. One more problem and then we will be done. So we are going to find 2 points given a point and the slope. So here is what's going to happen. We're going to plot this point we are given. So we're going to plot this -4, 3, -4, 3. And using this slope, we're going to find another point on the graph. So to get from here to another point on the graph, I've got to follow my slope. My rise is -4, my run is 5, which means I have to go down 4. So starting at the point I just plotted, I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go over, because my run is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went down 4 and to the right 5, and that gave me another point. I'm going to connect them with a line. It could extend on forever, but I'm going to stop right there so that we have it graphed on our graph. And it has asked us to find 2 points, given a point and a slope. Well, one of the points is this one right here, the last one that we plotted, which looks like 1, -1. Another point on that graph, well, we're just going to go find one. So I'm going to use my slope again, and I'm going to count down 1, 2. From this point, I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This point will also be on that line that I drew, and this is probably going to be ugly because I'm going to connect them like this, although it worked out okay. So now you have another point on the graph right here, and that point, it looks like, is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and -1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is 2 points given a point and the slope. So you just plot the original point and then use your rise over your run to get to the next one. And I could keep going, but it only asks for 2, so that's all we're going to do. So there is finding slope from a graph. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening.